Greetings, my friends, from the garage of Optimus Prime. So I have to do a repair on Optimus today, and I could not find a lot of information online about this particular repair. So I'm going to create something that I normally don't do, and it's a tutorial video, but it's not really a tutorial. It's just sort of a guidance video. I want to preface this by saying that I am not a certified expert in any of this. I've done enough in life and enough repairs on cars and enough research to learn what needs to be done and hopefully resolve the problem that I'm having. But I do want to encourage any of you who have any additional input or feedback or comments about anything I show on this video to please put it in the comments below, so anyone who finds this in the future has some good solid information on what to do in this situation. So that being said, here's my problem. So Prime runs a Detroit DD15 motor. No comments on the motor, please. I know everyone has their preference. Now, I need to replace that thermostat there, and the reason why I believe I need to replace it really quick, the engine has not been reaching the operating temperature it normally does. It's much lower than it should be. Now, in addition to that, the MIL light came on the dash. It's not the check engine light, it's a malfunction indicator lamp. And when I plug in the computer, the code reads failed thermostat. So that's a good sign. That could be the problem. Because what I believe is happening is there's constantly coolant flowing through the engine. It's not opening and closing. So the coolant with the constant flow is keeping the engine too cool and thus not allowing it to warm up to where it needs to be. So I'm going to show you how to replace that. And at the same time, I am draining that. First thing I'm going to do is loosen the filler cap so that when I drain it from the bottom, it just drains a little bit more efficiently. Okay, I'm down under the passenger side of the truck, and right there is what I need to loosen in order to drain the coolant out. As you can see, there's an attachment for a hose. I did see on some videos people would attach a hose and just run that hose to a drain pan. That works too. I don't have a hose, believe it or not, so I have a little catch bucket there in case it drips down, and I have this much bigger thing here for it to drain into. This could be a lot. I believe it's anywhere from 13, 16 gallons, something like that. So I don't know if it's all going to come out, but I am prepared to capture all of it in this massive device here. Let's see how this goes. All I'm going to use is a standard wrench here. All right, as you can see, it's draining out here into the pan. I have this socket here that actually helped loosen it a bit. It's a 1-inch deep socket, which helped me. Drain flow is starting to slow down. One thing I am happy with is that I brought this added bucket here. I'm going to use this wrench to tighten it again. I could not find any torque specs on here. From what I read, it's plastic on plastic, so tighten it snugly, but do not over tighten is pretty much the message that I have. All right, next I got to remove this and this clamp here. So the bolts on the thermostat here, there's 4 of them, and this is a 1/2-inch socket. And the bolt down here for the clamp is a 8mm socket. Now I did see online where some guys were recommending to get some new clamps. So if you decide to do that, feel free. You also want to remove this. There is a little wiring harness here, which has these types of plugs. There was one right up there that I had to remove, and a second one right here. I'm going to loosen these bolts and try to pry it loose and see what happens. Trying to be prepared to catch at least something that drops down, but there you go. There's that mess. I'm going to let that drip and drain until it's done doing whatever it needs to do. There's a seal right here, gasket, whatever you want to call it. When ordering the new one, which I'll show you in a moment, you want to make sure you get the seal as well, because apparently that comes separately. Don't know why they'd keep it separate. And of course, you want to clean the surface and all that before you put the new one on. Okay, I got new coolant. Now, according to the dealership, I need 16 gallons to put into Optimus here, but it's got to be diluted. This is concentrate coolant, and on the radiator fill area there, that's what it calls for. So I need to dilute it with distilled water, not regular water. So I got 8 gallons of that and 8 gallons of this. Part number wise, this is what it looks like. The thermostat, coolant, and you also have to get the seal separately. Thank you to those who made that suggestion to me online. This is what the new thermostat looks like with that seal. All of the bolts are the same length, so you don't have to pay much attention on this case anyway to shorter versus longer ones. They all match. Before I tighten these bolts down, I'm going to reconnect the line here. I just like to make sure everything can go back together before I start tightening everything down. This is an example of that. You can see it goes all the way up to the edge there. And just go ahead and tighten that back down. See that there? 22 foot-pounds. So I don't have anything fancy to dilute this stuff because it's purely concentrated. I got to use the distilled water 50-50 mix. I have a 5-gallon bucket here, so pretty much gonna put both of those into a bucket, and I'll do that maybe for 2 of them at a time, and then dump this using a funnel back into the radiator. Pro tip, pumps are an option. For good measure, they always say whatever you take out, you put back in. So I have all the coolant sitting there that drained out of the radiator. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it into the canisters I've already emptied, just to kind of match and see where I'm at and see how much more I might need to add. All right, this is where I stand currently. Adding all those up, that comes to about 10 gallons that's currently in the truck, and I still have some left over in here and here, so I know I'm going to be putting more than 10 gallons. I don't feel a terrible amount of left in here, but my guess would be at least another few gallons are going to go in. Okay, I've got it up to the cold max line, about as high as I'm able to get to on the current elevation I'm at. I'm going to put the cap back, but I'm not going to put it back. I'm just going to kind of leave it there. From what I'm told, you got to burp the system. I don't have any fancy vacuums or other equipment that people might suggest. And in speaking directly to the dealership, there's a pressure cap right here and a filler cap right here. Dealership techs told me to vent it from the top or highest most point of the system, which is here. So I'm going to leave that cap kind of off, actually. No leaks, that's a good sign. Looks like the level's dropping down a little bit. Just going to let that keep going. Now you also got to turn on the heat in the bunk as well. Alright, I can definitely feel a ton of heat coming from the vents. It took quite a long time. This was probably 20-30 minutes. I was revving the engine up to about 1500 RPMs and holding it there, going back up and down. The radiator cap is still off. And you can see how it's just about close to 200, 195. First thing I was paying attention to was the upper radiator hose right here. That is very hot to the touch, but I can tell coolant's running through there. What I was waiting for was to have this hose get warm as well, because if it stays cold, that tells me the thermostat's not opening up. So now when I touch it carefully, of course, it definitely feels warm to the touch. Not as hot as that one, but definitely, yeah, definitely got some heat on it. So that tells me this finally opened and I've got coolant flowing. All right, I got him turned off. He's going to cool down a little bit. You can see the coolant level is still pretty good. I ended up using about 13, 14 gallons between the concentrate and the water combined. So a little bit less than I had anticipated, but I'm okay. I'd rather have more than not enough. So I'm going to let it cool down, start it back up, take it on a ride, and fingers crossed it's all right. I did read a little bit more about some insights people were offering. For instance, some people were suggesting to use a pressure testing kit on this before putting the fluid in, make sure there's no air leaks in the system. I don't have that fancy equipment. I'm just your average Joe, so I used what I could, and so far it seems to be working okay. I do want to thank everybody who offered me some advice during this repair, and anyone who's watching this, if you have advice, if you're looking at this video and saying, hey, he should have done this or he should have done that, please write it in the comments below. I'm no diesel mechanic. A lot of folks looking for advice are not either, but we really value the input of those of you who have been in these situations before so that we can all help each other out. In the meantime, I do hope this video helps some of you who have a DD15 motor in the future, and you all stay safe out there as you're driving them. In the words of Optimus Prime, roll out. Thanks, guys.